Let each one give just as he has purpose in his heart, not grudgingly, nor out of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. Father, thank you for the living grace that you blessed us with. I pray that we would be wise stewards of it. Towards Faith Bible Church. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. Okay, a couple of announcements here. We had the business meeting last week. There was no bloodshed, so that's always a positive. Anyway, in all seriousness, we did tape it, so if you were not there, if you would like to see the whole meeting in its entirety, unedited, unredacted, or anything like that, then you can. And I would say this, if you're a member, you need to see it. And you should be aware, you should be concerned about our budget. I'm not saying you're not if you weren't there, but this is, of course, what we talked about, some pressing needs that we have, and which doesn't change. I mean, we've always had pressing needs as a local church, but we, with the downturn, with COVID-19 and everything, we need to catch up, and it's serious. So there's some expenses there that we didn't have before. And we need to do whatever we can. We did talk about selling the building, and basically determine it's not just like selling any other real estate in New York. You have to have court approval to sell a church, and on top of that, then it has to be appraised, and then the money, if sold, would go into an escrow, and then if we were to hypothetically buy another building or use it for some purposes to assemble elsewhere, then we could have it. But it's complicated. And so seeing at this point that God has us here, and that's fine, like I said, I'm not pushing one thing or another. I just want to be in God's directed will. And I'll tell you what, that for, decades now, He has provided for us here. And although, yes, we have pressing needs, He's continued to allow us to meet here in this building. We just need to do our part. And, I made no bones about it that we have to give more if we're going to take care of this building. And it's all of our responsibility as a local church. And we do what we can with that, because you can't continue to have a building with water coming in certain areas. It's not sustainable at some point. There's going to be bigger issues than that. So we looked at that, and it was a good meeting, I thought, and just looking at things in a factual manner, doctrinal manner, and hopefully we can each make our own application, the appropriate application for the circumstances. So I'll make the video available. I'm trying to get it on a link so that all I would do is send you a link and you go to it and you just watch it if you want. The sound is a little off, so you're going to have to turn your volume up, but it should be, at least you should be able to hear it. Also, pray for other local churches as well. These are the last days, and like with any church, we have our issues. Other churches have their issues as we battle it out. Again, as the verse I went over first hour, have to keep fighting the good fight. And fighting the good fight, as I mentioned, is being here only 4 hours a week. That's all we need. So be here 4 hours a week. If the doors are open, you can sleep later. That's how I look at it. So you have to take a hard-nosed approach. I know it sounds kind of rough. It's really not. When you consider the cosmos and really what you have to do, you have to be prepared to make sacrifices in time and energy to get to Bible class. Because without this, it's just not going to work out as well for you. This is one of the things. The more you obey God in your life, the better off you're going to be, the more blessings you're going to have. So this is especially true with assembling in Bible class. So, all right, so pray for the other local churches, and of course pray for each other as we all have our own needs and health, spiritual, and that's one of the things I was very much gratified and I enjoyed yesterday in our baptism service. I thought it was a wonderful case. First of all, we could obey a command here, and you have two believers that obeyed God's command to be baptized, and that it was something that was refreshing. We could remind ourselves about this very profound relationship we have with Jesus Christ and with God the Father, but also too we could enjoy each other's fellowship, and that was great. It's what it's about, in many cases. And without that, one of the things that occurs to me too, it's like you have to have fellowship. You have to have face-to-face fellowship. Virtual can do for a time. There is no substitute. Again, unless you're incarcerated, you're stuck in a hospital, you're just physically unable, that's between you and the Lord, to get out. You need to have face-to-face time with your fellow positive believer. No substitute. All right, so to our notes here, we're looking at verse 7, Esther 3:7 to be precise, and we were looking at the casting of lots. Haman concocted this evil plan. He really wants to make sure that he has basically divine sanction from his pagan deities. So he's seeking the right time to do this. He's seeking this divine guidance, pagan deities here, of course. And we were making some notes here about the practice of casting lots, very common in Persia and other places, primarily pagan there, but we do see with the Jews, it was widespread among the Jews. However, this was something that was truly divinely inspired by God the Father, and he was in charge of this as well. So, point 18, page 72, however, the Jews sought wisdom from the God, not pagan deities. So that's the primary difference there when you look at, one set of throwing lots, or, the Persian method versus the Jewish method. One is pagan, one is not. And ultimately, even the pagan ones, God is in charge of whatever happens there too, by the way, which is kind of interesting. Because you can see that God controlled pagan Haman's lot throwing so that it coincides perfect time for his downfall as well. He doesn't get this yet. He doesn't even know what's going to happen, but he's going to be blindsided. Of course, he's messing with God and God's people with a thoroughly evil plan. 19, while the average pagan believed the result of a lot was up to fate, or, in our day and age, well, good luck, or something like that. That's kind of the same thing as fate, blind destiny, or whatever. No, it doesn't work that way in the Christian way of life. Just like God is in charge of the lots, God is in charge of everything. You're not going to have bad luck or good luck. You're going to have blessing or cursing. Or God jamming you up. There's other synonyms we use, but we see that you cannot remove the divine component from this. Divine meaning God. All right, I like this one. I'm not being serious. I hate it. You got to make your own luck. And what does that mean? I don't want to make my own luck. When I try to make my own luck, it's always bad luck. It never seems to work out. Gee, go figure. It's just stupid expressions we have, but you have to understand it's kind of based on just a whim. Well, we don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully something good turns up. When we can approach God, pray for it, say, well, I might not get the answer to my prayer, but whatever the answer is, whatever God, answer he gives, it's going to be perfect. And he is perfect. So we can be confident. While the average pagan believed in the result of a lot was up to fate, the believer understands that the lot is in God's hands, who determines the outcome. Proverbs 16:33. lots. The idea is that one of the concepts, the themes is mankind, as individuals, we plan our own so-called destiny. We plan our future. We make these plans, try to put things into place, and we have no clue sometimes. And what we're seeing here is the person that does not obviously include God, the unbeliever or maladjusted believer. We're seeing this here too. Verse 25. There is a way which seems right to a man. I see green lights all the way down, no roadblocks. Oh, this is great. In the Christian way, I don't know how many believers I have heard this lax discernment. Because you can do something or you're able to do it doesn't mean God approves. It's just ridiculous. It's a baby sentiment. It's like you want to check them. Are you still in diapers? Because, what you're coming up with is terrible. It's one of those things. But, again, if we want to do something and pursue the flesh, we're going to find reasons to justify our course of action in life. That's just how it works under the flesh. That's not what we're after. What does God want me to think, say, and do? Okay, determine that. He'll give you guidance. And then whatever goals you have, whatever you want out of life, make sure it coincides with that. It should be in harmony. It's a struggle, but that's, again, what we have to do. There's a way which seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. So, in one notable type of person, a violent person, what usually happens to violent people? It's not uncommon that they also die a violent death. So you have that sin unto death, and other things as well. 33, our main verse. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. So regardless of how it comes up, there's no way that you can, in this sense, cast the lot where God will not impact, where God will not control it in some way. Not in some way, control its outcome to suit his purposes. There's no way around it. And this would include even for pagans, like Haman. Well, he thinks it's a green light. Okay, I have my date. I can go ahead now. The gods have spoken, and they have approved. They've approved my plan. No, but it will be the perfect time in which he will, get hung on the gallows. So God determines all this, the timing. It's not going to be immediate either. There's going to be some time before, we're going to have almost a year before the plot comes to fruition. Isaiah 34:17. They're speaking of God's superintendence here. Interesting, verse 16, seek from the book of the Lord and read. Not one of these will be missing. None will lack its mate, for his mouth has commanded and his spirit has gathered them. And he has cast the lot for them. Here, God is depicted as casting the lot, obviously referring to his will, his directed will here. He's not literally casting lots in heaven. And his hand has divided it to them by line, and they shall possess it forever. From generation to generation they shall dwell in it. So, anyway, God is in control of these things. And Jonah 1:7. This is actually my favorite. Of all the examples we have of casting lots, this is my favorite. So Jonah received a command to go to Nineveh and pronounce a judgment against it. Okay, he was a legitimate prophet. We already established that. What does he do? Well, he's not really happy at all. Hates the Assyrians. It's Nineveh again, a major, prominent city of the Assyrians. And so Jonah refuses to obey the order, goes to a ship, and flees to Tarshish. Tarshish, most of the evidence now archaeologically puts Tarshish, again, Jonah is in Israel, so he embarks on a ship that is sailing to the opposite end of the Mediterranean. I think Tarshish is around modern-day Spain, so he goes the exact opposite way. Which way was Nineveh? Well, if you look from Israel, Nineveh would have been east. Jonah goes west, and he doesn't want anything to do with this. And so, found a ship, paid the fare, we see, and went down and fell asleep. And then, you see in verse 4, and God hurled a great wind on the sea, and there came to be a great storm on the sea, so that the ship was about to break up. Then the sailors became afraid. Every man cried to his God, and they threw the cargo, which was in the ship, into the sea to lighten it up for them. But Jonah had gone below into the hold of the ship, lain down, and fallen sound asleep. So this is, to me, I find it humorous because it really, his spiritual condition really, mirrors his physical condition. He's asleep spiritually here. And all hell's breaking loose. There's a great storm. We understand here explicitly from the context, God does this, to this boat. 6, so the captain approached him and said, how is it that you are sleeping? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps your God will be concerned about us so that we will not perish. That shows a mindset. Everyone is calling on their God. So-and-so help me, or whatever. Maybe if you're a Philistine, it's Dagon. Oh, Dagon, the fish god, help me here. We're in a lot of trouble, and then so everyone's doing their thing. And the captain is incensed that Jonah, you're asleep when all this is going on. Maybe your God will help us. Well, yes. 7, and each man said to his mate, come, let us cast lots, so we may learn on whose account this calamity has struck us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So what happened here, they want to know, okay, why is this happening? Someone's got to be to blame. So, you can picture the little crew lining up, and they're casting lots. Okay, Bob, you're good. Okay, Bill, you're good. On down the line, Jonah. It falls to Jonah. All eyes are on Jonah. And, that is actually the reason. And so God controls this. God caused a storm, and he controlled the lots to fall on Jonah. And then 8, then they said to him, tell us now, on whose account has this calamity struck us? What is your occupation? Where do you come from? What is your country? And from what people are you? It's like, who are you? Picture, they think they're about ready to die. And he said to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear Yahweh, God of heaven, who made the sea and dry land. 10, then the men became extremely frightened, and they said to him, how could you do this? Well, good question. For the men knew that he was fleeing from the presence of Yahweh because he had told them. Like, how stupid can you be fleeing from your God? You're an idiot, and this is what's happening here. So, anyway, how all this, we see Jonah's plans, and it takes these pagans, they're all casting lots, try to determine, what's going on and whose fault. Someone's got to be to blame here. And actually, yes, someone is to blame, and that person is Jonah. And God, however many crew members, right, goes through all the crew, and then finally comes to Jonah. So anyway, God determines the outcome. 20, we see this, of course, once the Jonah was thrown overboard, the storm stopped. That made an impression on these pagans. Like that's definitive proof. A raging storm, throw Jonah overboard, and it stops. The believer ought to dispense with the concepts of luck, fate, and or destiny. So remember, when you go play the lottery, right? It's not luck, you know. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to win $1 million. Nope. You won't be lucky enough to win $1 million. First of all, that's a get rich quick scheme there. Well, I just want to spend $1 and maybe, you know, maybe God will bless me with $1 million. No, probably not. If I'm proven wrong, but we understand to go and try to make money in that respect is to try to make a lot of money, you know, in getting rich quick, pursuing wealth like that. But all the wealth I could use to help other believers, help the church, yeah, you could. You know, but we have to look at our motivations when we approach these types of things. But note the name lottery. So, and it's not lucky, no matter what they call it. Today, you could be lucky, you know. Fate could smile upon you. How does fate smile upon you? We have all these expressions, you know. Knock on wood, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket today. Salt over the shoulder, or whichever shoulder. Maybe that was just bad luck or whatever. Now I'm set. I'm going to go buy the winning ticket. No, you're not. No, you're not. So, anyway. Now, some people, oh, I'm going to show you. Yeah. No, you're not. You know. 21, our lives and futures are in God's hands at all times. Psalm 41:1. Another Psalm of David here. How blessed, or really exceedingly blessed, could say very, very, very blessed, is he who considers the helpless. The Lord will deliver him in a day of trouble. The Lord will protect him and keep him alive. And he shall be called blessed upon the earth, and do not give him over to the desire of his enemies. The Lord will sustain him upon his sickbed. In his illness, you do restore him to health. So, you want health insurance? Right here. Depend on the Lord. Not Blue Cross, Blue Shield, AARP, whatever. I mean, that's fine. You know, obviously we enroll in these things and it makes sense, but ultimately, even if you have the most, you know, the best plan, the best coverage, God's still in control. Or, if you had no coverage, God is still in control. That is the amazing thing. 121:1. So again, the point, our lives and futures are in God's hands at all times. I'll lift up my eyes to the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to slip. He who keeps you will not slumber. That's the thing. God doesn't sleep. It's not like you can pray to him and then, I'm sorry, I didn't get your message. I didn't get your text or whatever. He doesn't sleep. He's 24/7, as we would say. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. It's a good verse for today with the heat. So when you're in the shade, think about God being your shade and not being smited and different things. But 7, the Lord will protect you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forever. So there you have it. Should be a very comforting psalm. That's worth obviously committing to memory here, and where we have need not have any worries about the future, regardless of if you're struggling right now. Now, struggle is the way to grow too. That is the thing. So you have to always keep that in perspective if you're being tested physically, mentally, spiritually. Remember, this is part of the Christian way of life so that we can grow actually, and so that we get closer in our relationship with God. For some people, struggles and testing, this pushes them away from God. They get angry at God, angry at their situation, that kind of thing. Well, that's their problem. Really, what it should do is drive us closer to God, depend on Him. Because the more we depend on God, you can't, put it another way, you can't depend on God enough. There's no such thing as, well, you're depending too much on God. You never see that in Scripture. So 22 here, Haman decided on the last month of the year, the month of Adar, on the 13th day. So that was going to be the day. And if we go back to Esther 9:13, we see that, of course, we have the month, but we also know the day. Oh, that is not real. Let's see here. Oh, I'm sorry. Chapter 3. And letters were sent out by couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, to seize their possessions as plunder. So, we know that the casting of the lots started anyway in Nisan, which is March, April. This is the first month. So, based on the way the lots fell, we understand that then Haman, however he was determining this, say, okay, so the gods have spoken, it's going to be Adar, the last month of the year. So he's got almost, really a full year to wait, nearly. And the day is the 13th. 23, the 13th day foreshadowed doom, as it was viewed as an unlucky number by the Persians. So we have Friday the 13th. Guess what? The Persians have the 13th too, as an unlucky number. So this has been something perpetuated through there. But does this stop Haman? No. So 24, clearly Haman was undeterred in pursuing his evil plan. Remember, you're talking about a guy blinded by hatred. And reason has left him, if it was ever there in the first place. Probable demon possession. So verses 8 and 9, then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of all other people, and they do not observe the king's laws. So it is not in the king's interest to let them remain. If it is pleasing to the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who carry on the king's business to put into the king's treasuries. Verses 8 and 9 here, analysis. 1, Haman picked an opportune time to approach the king. 2, we see an accomplished manipulator using a mix of truth and guile to persuade Ahasuerus. Again, Ahasuerus is a leader. It's not too hard to influence him sometimes. We see after the if we think back to the former queen, Queen Vashti, what should I do, about this situation? She's defying me. Well, his advisors gave him bad advice, but it turns out that through this, Esther, through God's, supervision, if you will, his power promoted her. And preserved them, the Jews here. 3, he refers to the Jews as a certain people without specifically identifying them. Jesus said, the Jews, these people, the Jews, it does not name them. It doesn't want the king to know, really here. Or at least it be a basis for objection to his plan. For in this manner they are singled out as those posing an issue. It's like, there's a certain people. You could see even too, we're reading it, but undoubtedly he had a tone like condemning them and so forth. Like they're not a good people. There's some issues here with these people. So in this manner, they're singled out as posing an issue. 5, the Jews were unique, but this wasn't a source of sedition against the king. Deuteronomy 7:6. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. So, yes, the Jews are very unique. And, but this doesn't mean that there's rebellion against Ahasuerus. So it wasn't a source of sedition or treason against the king. 6, they are further described as scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Now, okay, we understand, having studied the history of Mordecai and Esther and so forth, of course, in other contexts dealing with the dispersion of the Jews. Were the Jews dispersed? And specifically here, dealing with Mordecai and Esther, we understand they came to be in Persia from the Babylonian exiles. There was a few different exiles, but of course, they were dispersed among the nations. We understand this. But one thing that you see is among Jews in the diaspora out there, they banded together. They formed their own communities and so forth. This is very well documented, from antiquity through, even today and so forth. But when you look at, say, the Middle Ages in Europe, they had their own communities, and they were separatist, for a lot of reasons, because they were the Jews, and they're existing in a Gentile nation, so they kept to themselves. But that doesn't mean they didn't participate in the economy, participate in the society around them. They just did it on a different level. And so you see here, when Haman describes them here, 6, scattered and dispersed. Point 7, this insinuates a lack of integration into the Persian kingdom. Though there's a certain people, the tone implies issues here. They're scattered and dispersed, meaning they're not really integrating. They're not, we would say, pro-Persian. They're just doing their own thing. Okay, so he's painting this picture that's very negative. And of course, he's using a little bit of truth, but mostly he's using guile and deceit. Because the Jews were integrated. 8, to the contrary, the Jews were fully integrated into the daily life of the Persian Empire. This is actually, in our current times, interesting because one of the charges in particular in Germany, okay, you won't hear this here, but in Germany, some of the top politicians have come out and said that, in terms of those who are Muslim, they do not integrate. They do not. And they have no interest in integrating, generally speaking. Now, if someone says that here, and obviously this would be very discriminatory and so forth, but they're seeing that what's happening is that a lot of the Muslims are forming their own communities, not participating, say, in German society and like a normal citizen, and really keeping to themselves, very separatist from this culture that they consider decadent and so forth. It's not that the Jews, if we look back in Persia, didn't consider this decadent, but they were integrated. They're participating in everything. We see that Esther, the whole beauty pageant thing was not legit. So that's, if you're going to integrate into that or participate in that, then that would at least infer a lot of integration. So the Jews did integrate. Now 9, many families like Mordecai's had been established in Persia there since the Babylonian exile. We already looked at that, but they've been there a long time. So, yeah, they were already part of this. They were a very important part of the Persian Empire at various points. 10, Haman asserts their laws are different from those of all other people, and they do not observe the king's laws. Now, 11, his statement is an overgeneralization, as we only have one Jew in context that is not observing the king's laws, Mordecai. So Mordecai has enraged Haman. Haman then goes, well, these people, they do not obey the king's laws. No, one person was not obeying the king's law at this point, but he wants to kill them all. Indeed, the Jews followed the Mosaic law, a unique body of guidance given to them by God. 1 Kings 2:3. So they're unique. They're God's chosen people. Okay? But they're not seditious. They're not treasonous. Yes, they follow their own law, Mosaic law, but that doesn't mean they are not law-abiding. So, he's painting it one way and one. Keep the charge of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, and his ordinances, and his testimonies, according to what is written in the law of Moses, Mosaic law here, that you may succeed in all that you do and wherever you turn. So this is what guided the Jews, should have guided the Jews. Many times we understand they were not. But this body of unique, here they are unique people, but the unique commands, ordinances, testimonies, that's governed their daily life. With that being said, it didn't mean you could be treasonous to Gentile rulers and that kind of thing as you were, when Jews were in exile. That's not it. 13, however, the law didn't sponsor disobedience, but compliance with authorities. Proverbs 24:21. So, my son, fear the Lord and the king. Of course, this is to honor, to obey. Both first, this is important. Who's first? The Lord. So you serve the Lord, you obey him, and then you also obey the king. You do not associate with those who are given to change. But really here, fear the Lord and the king. And of course, the Jews have the law, so this is, again, an admonition to pay attention to your authorities. Obey them. Luke 20:21. So since we had tax day, I thought, this is a good verse. So, 21, and they questioned him, saying, this is Pharisees and others, the leaders, trying to question him to trap him. Actually, in 20, and they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be righteous in order that they might catch him in some statement so as to deliver him up to the rule and authority of the governor. They're constantly probing for weaknesses and ways to trap Jesus. They were never successful. So then they had to just resort to lying. So 21, and they questioned him, saying, Teacher, we know that you speak and teach correctly, and you are not partial to any, but teach the way of God in truth. Do they really believe this? Oh, absolutely not. They just want to trap him. Is it lawful for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But he detected their trickery and said to them, Show me a denarius. That's a coin. Whose likeness and inscription does it have? And they said, Caesar's. And he said to them, Then render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they were unable to catch him saying in the presence of the people, and marveling at his answer, they became silent. So here he's advocating, when you look in a cosmic sense, advocating paying taxes to the Gentiles even. So, this was the law. So you comply with the laws of Caesar and also comply with the laws of God in terms of giving too. But that's how you do it. And so in a way, even though we're not technically under the Mosaic law, certain principles still apply to us. As believers, we are under God's law, but we also have to be in compliance with our nation's, the laws of the land. But again, the Jews here by Haman are being depicted as we have this expression, you're a law unto yourself. And that's exactly the point he's trying to make, Haman is to Ahasuerus, that these people just do whatever they want, they're law unto themselves, which is a lie. 14, at the end of verse 8, Haman adds, So it is not in the king's interest to let them remain. 15, that is, it wouldn't be appropriate for the king to allow this factional, rebellious people to remain. Now, when it says interest, this word is kind of interesting because it does mean referring to that which is appropriate or proper in the Hebrew. Also, this when he says to let them remain, this is to have rest. So, and we'll see, it'll be even more explicit in the next verse that really it's not appropriate for the king to allow these people to rest. In other words, get them out. And not only just get them out, but kill them all. 16, Haman proceeds to ask for the destruction of all the Jews. 17, he begins his request using proper court protocol by addressing the king, if it is pleasing to the king. This is, again, whatever we might think of Ahasuerus, however flawed he was and is in our context, you needed to be very respectful. And it wasn't something like he's being obsequious and syrupy. No, this is how you address the king in this particular. If you wanted something done, if you wanted a request approved, this is how you did it. So if it is pleasing to the king. Now 18, his specific petition, let it be decreed that they be destroyed. Our term destroyed indicates extermination. And this word abad occurs here in the PL stem. And there's a number of different stems, and what this has to do in Hebrew verbs is that one word, for instance, this one, abad, can mean to destroy something in its basic sense. That can be a fine translation. But these other stems, these other basically suffixes and so forth are added to the word, and it takes on a different meaning. It can take on a more intensive meaning, which in this case, it's this intensive stem, Hebrew stem and vocabulary, so it intensifies the meaning. So it's not just destroy, it's exterminate. You know, if you say I destroyed them, oh, if you really think about it, well, maybe there were some survivors. You know, maybe most people were killed, most of the Jews were killed, but this means they were absolutely, every last single one of them, he wants them wiped out. So when you look at these various stems in this word, it has a different nuance. One other, maybe as an example too, you know, if you break your arm, right, there's a word in the Hebrew, I think it's shabar if I remember correctly, in the regular general sense, right, you break something, you break pottery, you break a glass, you break your arm. Okay, so you break your arm, but in this other stem, intensive stem and so forth, it can mean to shatter. Same verb, different stem. So when you shatter your arm, it's different than breaking it. I mean, are they both broken? Yes. Shattering is much more severe. That's what you have here. He's wanting to destroy them, actually to exterminate them. And that's also seen, we read this earlier, but in verse 13, 3:13, it's further emphasized. It's like over the top. 20, Haman's solution to Mordecai's insubordination was a complete extermination. One man that's disobeying and enraged him, and he comes up with this. 21, he didn't bother to propose other punitive or corrective measures. As an example, okay, king, if it's pleasing, these people, these certain people, let's tax them. You know, let's get more money. Okay, let's, you know, say whatever percentage, tax them double. We'll teach them. Or why not decree, you people obey? Otherwise, you know, there will be trouble, or you will be, you know, or hey, you will be exterminated. But at least you're not immediately going to kill them all. It's like, at least, you know, something so extreme, at least do something before that. It's not what he asked for. 22, and this is what's interesting here. From a monetary standpoint, the extermination of an entire people would eliminate tax revenue. Yep. And here's the thing, you want to talk about value of human life. Was human life valuable? Well, yeah, it was, but not maybe for obvious reasons. It has to do with how much tax you gain or lose or anything like that. This is huge. And listen, remember, during this time in Persia, they're gearing up, and they have recently dealt with conflicts with Greece. So, and that's one of the things, you're always trying to increase the money in your treasuries, much like government is now. So this is how it works. And so if you're going to strictly from an economic standpoint, and this is how cold and calculated this is, you will see, you would lose a lot of revenue if you exterminated an entire people, however many millions of Jews there were. You got a lot of money you lose. So in order to head off that possible objection, not that you actually care for them as human life or have compassion for them, no. That's a loss of a lot of money that I can't replace, and I need it right now. See, that's how it was. And so Haman, he's got this figured out. He knows the king is a shallow, pathetic, evil human being too. You've already seen that, but 23, Haman covers this angle as well by offering to pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who carry on the king's business to put into the king's treasuries. So understand, for approval, he's outlined all this, these rebellious people, these certain people, they don't listen to the king. It's not in your best interest. It wouldn't be appropriate to let them live. So, if it pleases you, king, let it be decreed they all be exterminated. And then, you know, as the kicker, again, okay, I'm going to pay you to do it. He said, I will pay you. And so You can see the wheels turning, the evil wheels turning. What's it going to cost Ahasuerus? Nothing. It's not going to cost him a thing. Because now you have Haman on the hook. I'm going to pay you. And this figure of 10,000 talents of silver, there's various values assigned to this, but it's, an incredible, it might as well be $1 trillion. So the question is well, how does the king think Haman's going to have this kind of capital to pay this off? A mass extermination across the whole empire. Well, it's not really dealt with. But here, at the very least, what we see, this is a bribe. I'm going to pay you to do this. Just let it be done. You don't have to do anything. It will be taken care of, and you're not going to lose a dime when we do it. Oh, wow. And the king being evil, I only see upside here. I don't even care who these people are, whoever they are. We don't know. Okay, let's go forward. And that's what's happening here. His offer, a fantastic sum, would offset any loss to the king's treasury. 25, his hatred is all-consuming as seen in this proposal. 26, it will stir up strife and turmoil, which ultimately will be to Haman's detriment. Proverbs 10:12. So these proverbs, these principles, surely you can see in these, as this plot is progressing, as Haman is stirring things up. So hatred stirs up strife. Love covers all transgressions. In verse 18, he who conceals hatred has lying lips, and he who spreads slander is a fool. And that's exactly it. He is concealing his hatred to the king. He's concealing this personal affront that he felt by Mordecai to accomplish this other thing. And then 26:26. Though his hatred covers itself with guile, deceit, his wickedness will be revealed before the assembly. And that's exactly what happened. The gallows that Haman prepared for Mordecai, he himself is hung on it. So he's publicly displayed here and revealed in that manner. Well, that's what you have. All right, this is where we'll stop today. But, you can see this is, again, super evil. Hitler, he at least named the people. You knew what he thought about the Jews or anything like that. I mean, this is how callous as that is. This type of genocide here, amazing. And that you have Haman not even naming him, and the king not even asking, who is this? Who are these certain people? No, could care less. Anyway, it is when you read history and so forth, remember this is Xerxes. His name is Ahasuerus. We're going by Ahasuerus in the book, but he's Xerxes. And you will find him in history, and he's known to be, compulsive, over the top. And now you can see biblically, and see this stuff is not revealed in secular history, but biblically you could see this man is very evil, along with Haman, but this world ruler at the time. So, I like this stuff in that you see really the motivation here. This is the the deal making behind the scenes. All for what? Really nothing. And the callousness that these people display. You have that today. This is the devil's world. And so a lot of things, and I just referred to Hitler, another plan of genocide. Nothing much has changed. And see, the Jews is God's chosen people to remain God's chosen people, even though now they are in unbelief. The church will never be God's chosen people. Just so there's many believers that think that because the Jews are now in unbelief. Yeah, they're in unbelief, but they're still God's chosen people. This is a permanent designation that they have. It will come around later. But you also, too, see the Abrahamic promise. Those who bless you, I will bless. Those who curse you, I will curse. Everyone who has tried this type of thing against the Jews has been humbled, destroyed, and, gone, basically. And the Jews, for their disobedience, it's not like they got off at all. I mean, they've been pursued among the nations, and God has done to them exactly what he said he would do, right? But there's still, this is the amazing thing about the Jews when you study their history, yet they still exist as a people, cohesive, clear identity, and, God is still judging them and so forth, yet he still does bless them. There's grace amidst judgment. But even so, even though they're in unbelief, you try to mess with Israel and try to eradicate the Jews, then you will come under God's wrath. He has promised to protect them. And see, this protection extends forever. And it's not nullified by the fact that they are in unbelief. In his grace, he watches over. And this is really evident with Haman as well. Especially when you consider Esther's motivations were not good. They were very worldly and cosmic when she was going through this pageant and so forth. So, yet God's grace prevailed, and he, of course, preserved the Jews. But it is just another instance in history where God is backing up his word. And we understand it's God, even though he's not mentioned in the book. We understand that he is working this out. So pretty cool when we see this. Anyway, we will stop here, and we will pick this up on Wednesday. Father, thank you for this privilege we have to study the book of Esther. I pray that we would see these principles clearly and learn to identify these in the world around us and seek to glorify you in these last days. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.